My name is Evelyn Parker. I'm 30 years old, and I just became CEO of Parker & Cupboard Development, a company I was told I'd never be good enough to run. But I didn't come home for the company. I came because my parents were dead. Their boat capsized off Hilton Head last Friday. And now, I'm sitting in a mahogany-paneled law office in Charleston, South Carolina, staring at a will I was never supposed to be part of. 3 years ago, I walked away from this family, and I meant it. But here I am, back in the city. I swore I'd never return to my name, somehow still stitched into the fabric of this legacy. And I can't shake the feeling that something's coming, something that's going to rewrite everything I thought I knew. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I grew up in a pristine 3-story colonial with wraparound porches and boxwood hedges shaped like swans. From the outside, we were picture-perfect Charleston monogrammed linens, charity luncheons, and oyster roasts where everyone wore white. Inside, it was colder, quieter. Rules came before feelings, reputation over reality. My parents, Robert and Margaret Parker, were the social spine of the neighborhood. He built half the waterfront developments around here. She hosted galas that made the local paper. And then there was Charlotte, my older sister by 3 years. Blonde, poised, practically bred, to hold a martini and a country club membership before she could drive. I was the quieter one, the thinker, always building things, Lego castles, science fair volcanoes, later Python scripts, and budgeting tools. But no matter how many awards I brought home, it was Charlotte who got the spotlight. I still remember my 6th grade math trophy sitting dusty in the den while the house was decorated top to bottom when Charlotte placed 3rd in a regional pageant. Margaret always said different girls, different gifts. But somehow, her gifts always came with confetti. Mine came with, "That's nice, honey," and a quick change of subject. I didn't really break until the night of the Magnolia fundraiser 3 years ago. I'd flown in from Austin, where I was already 2 years into my job as a data analyst. Charlotte was being honored for her innovative leadership at Parker & Co. I hadn't even known she'd joined the company. No one told me. We were on the veranda under string lights and soft jazz when my father tapped a wine glass and announced Charlotte will be stepping into an executive vice president role starting next month. It's the first step toward future leadership. Polite applause, camera flashes. Margaret dabbed at tears. Someone, maybe a cousin, asked, "And Evelyn?" My mother answered, "Oh, Evelyn's working with computers out west. She's chosen a different path." I remember the way the word different landed, like a stone skipping once before sinking. I left the party early that night. My father followed me out to the driveway trying to explain. "You're brilliant, Evelyn, but this business, it's about people, relationships. Charlotte just fits." That was the last conversation I had with either of them. I blocked their numbers the next morning. I didn't even say goodbye, and now they're gone. The receptionist calls my name, and I stand. My heart's beating faster than I want to admit. Not because I want their money. I don't. I never did. It's what I'm afraid I'll find here. Something that confirms every feeling I've buried. Or worse, something that unearths everything I thought I let go. When you grow up in Charleston's social orbit, appearances aren't just important. They're everything. Your dress hem, your thank you, notes the way your elbows rest on a dinner table. All of it feeds into a silent ranking system no one talks about, but everyone obeys. My mother mastered that system. Margaret Parker wasn't just elegant, she was strategic. Her friends worshipped her, and her enemies feared her, and she played the long game with terrifying grace. But with her daughters, there was no room for both of us to shine. Charlotte was groomed like a show pony, cotillion at 14, internship at the Chamber of Commerce at 17. "She's just such a natural leader," Mom would say, while adjusting Charlotte's sash. Meanwhile, I was asked to keep my room clean and try to be a little more sociable at church luncheons. I wasn't neglected, not in the traditional sense. I had everything I needed except room to matter. It started early. At 7, Charlotte got a puppy for her birthday. I got a microscope. At 12, she was enrolled in tennis camp, while I stayed home organizing Dad's office files for fun. She was praised for potential. I was practical. She got applause for mediocrity. I got silence for excellence. Once I won first place in a statewide science competition. I came home holding the plaque with both hands. Mom glanced at it and said, "That's wonderful, sweetheart. But don't forget Charlotte's debutante photos are this weekend. Can you help with the seating chart?" Even the way our parents disciplined us said everything. When Charlotte broke curfew, it was she just lost track of time. When I forgot to RSVP to a family friend's wedding, it was a lecture on disrespect. But the most damning thing I bought into it. I told myself I wasn't like Charlotte. I didn't need the spotlight. I was independent. I liked being behind the scenes. Quiet genius. Hidden strength. Bullshit. I wanted to be seen. I just stopped asking to be. Dad never hit us. He never yelled. His power was quieter than that. He made his expectations known with one raised eyebrow, one word, disappointing. That was enough. Charlotte loved the family business from the moment she was old enough to wear a hard hat. I liked it too, secretly. I loved the idea of building things that last. But I was steered toward STEM in school. Your brain's different, Mom would say. You think too linearly for development work. Leave that to Charlotte. They framed it like encouragement. But what they really meant was stay in your lane. And I did. I built my own life from the ground up. Full ride to Caltech. Internships. I landed in Austin with a startup that valued my brain and paid me what I was worth. Still, every now and then, I'd open Charlotte's Instagram and see her in a blazer standing in front of blueprints captioned with phrases like empowering communities or legacy in motion. My throat would tighten. That was supposed to be both of us. Maybe all of this would be easier if they just cut me off clearly. But they didn't. They kept me tethered to this family tree with strings they refused to admit they were pulling. Silent favoritism is more corrosive than open cruelty. It eats at your confidence until you're not sure if you're hurt or just imagining it. But you're not imagining it. The older I got, the clearer the pattern became. The more I succeeded, the more they minimized me. Because if I didn't need them, what did that say about their narrative? So I stayed gone. Until that phone call. Until the funeral. Until this will reading, where my name is printed at the top of a sealed envelope with the Parker and Cubber crest stamped in blue wax. It was one of those perfect Charleston spring nights, azaleas in bloom warm air, threaded with salt from the harbor. The Magnolia fundraiser was held at the Charleston Yacht Club, where the white tablecloths glowed under string lights and servers floated past with trays of crab cakes and champagne. It was elegant, curated, expensive. The kind of event my mother lived for. I hadn't planned to come. I hadn't been home in almost a year, and things were already strained. But Lydia, the woman who practically raised me, had asked. She said it would mean a lot to my parents. So I came, I flew in, rented a car, stayed at a hotel instead of the family house. The moment I arrived, I knew I was a background character in someone else's story. My mother air-kissed me at the entrance, barely noticing the navy suit I'd bought for the occasion. Charlotte beamed in a pale pink sheath dress, gold earrings catching the light. My father gave me a nod and a stiff smile. "Glad you made it," he said, then disappeared into a circle of developers and city councilmen. I stood near the bar, nursing sparkling water, watching them work the room like a royal couple. Charlotte gripping Graham's arm, her fiancé at the time, now CFO at Harborfront Capital, laughing, touching shoulders, charming donors. It was impressive, honestly. She knew how to own a room. And then, of course, the announcement. My father tapped a silver spoon against his glass. Everyone quieted. The band dimmed its music. We're proud to share tonight that Charlotte will be joining Parker & Coburn Development as our new Executive Vice President of Strategy. She's earned this role through years of preparation and commitment to our family's vision. It's the first step towards something bigger. Applause erupted. Charlotte pressed a hand to her chest like she was overwhelmed. Margaret dabbed her eyes. Graham looked smug. I stood frozen, my glass still raised mid-sip. No one had told me. Not one word. A few heads turned in my direction, and I saw it, that pity. The "oh, poor Evelyn." Must be hard being the other one. I tried to hold it together. I made it through dinner. I laughed at a few weak jokes from someone's husband. But as the dessert tray came around, I slipped out the back down the marina steps, where the air smelled brainy and old. That's where Dad found me. He didn't yell. He didn't apologize. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at the horizon. "I know this might be hard," he said. "But Charlotte has the instincts for this business. People trust her. She knows how to close a deal." "And I don't," he exhaled. You're brilliant, Evelyn. No one doubts that. But you analyze everything. Sometimes this work needs instinct. That's rich coming from an engineer turned developer, I snapped. He didn't respond. Just looked at me like I was a child again, not a grown woman, who'd helped take a fintech startup from seed to Series C. It's not personal, he said. It's business. Except it was personal. It had always been personal. The way they minimized me, erased me, rewrote the story. So I was the daughter who left because she didn't want to stay, not because she was never asked. That night, I went back to my hotel, packed my things, and left before sunrise. I didn't tell anyone goodbye. I blocked every family number in my phone. I changed my email. I poured myself into my job, my apartment, my people in Austin. And I thought I'd buried Charleston for good. Until Aunt Miriam called 3 weeks ago. Baby, I don't know how to say this. There was an accident. Your parents' boat capsized near Hilton Head. They didn't make it. I'd felt nothing at first. Then nausea, then silence. And now here I was, holding an invitation to a funeral where I didn't belong, and a sealed envelope with my name that I was scared to open. Austin gave me space to exhale. It was nothing like Charleston. Less judgment, less lace, more tacos and startups and weird art installations. I found my rhythm there, not just in work, but in life. For the first time, I wasn't somebody's daughter or somebody's disappointment. I was just Evelyn. My apartment was small, but bright, filled with plants I kept alive, and a bookshelf that sagged with secondhand novels. I biked to work most days, sipped oat milk lattes from the place around the corner, and went to trivia nights with my best friend Rachel. Rachel Flores was everything Charlotte wasn't hilarious, grounded loyal in a way that didn't need to be performed. She was the first person I called after the fundraiser fallout. Come home, she said. You don't owe them anything. You get to choose peace now. And so I did. For 3 years, Rachel and her girlfriend Liz became my chosen family. They hosted me for holidays, invited me on camping trips, helped me cry through that one disastrous breakup and cheer when I got promoted to lead data scientist. I helped Liz build a budgeting app for her tutoring business. We painted a mural in Rachel's backyard one humid night after too much boxed wine. No one cared where I'd come from, only who I was becoming. I had by all outside measures healed. But grief doesn't knock politely. When Aunt Miriam called with the news about my parents, I froze. I thanked her in a voice that didn't sound like mine, and hung up before I could feel anything real. I didn't cry. I didn't call Rachel. I didn't sleep. That night, I stood on my balcony, listening to the sound of traffic, and wondering what I was supposed to feel. Mourning people who never really saw you is like trying to cry for a stranger you used to resemble. I told myself I wouldn't go back. There'd be a funeral full of people who thought I was the one who ran off. The will would be clean and cruel everything to Charlotte, nothing to the prodigal tech nerd. But then Mr. Whitaker called. He left a voicemail. Miss Parker, I know this is unexpected, but I strongly advise you attend the will reading. There are matters that concern you directly. I ignored it for a day. Then 2. On the 3rd day, a package arrived. Inside was a manila envelope sealed in blue wax with the Parker & Comer crest. Beneath it, a handwritten note, to be delivered to Evelyn Parker upon my passing. Robert James Parker. That did it. I sat on my couch, holding that envelope for what felt like hours, staring at the seal at the handwriting that once signed my report cards. My fingers trembled, but I didn't open it. Not yet. Rachel came over later that night. She didn't ask questions, just saw my face and wrapped me in a hug. You going back? She asked eventually. I nodded. I think I need to know what he left unsaid. Rachel squeezed my hand. Then let's make a plan. You won't go alone. She and Liz helped book my flights, find a hotel. I promised I'd stay away from the family house. I wasn't going there to mourn. I was going to witness the final chapter of a story I never got to co-write. I flew out on a Thursday. Charleston's airport smelled like salt and jet fuel and old money. I stepped off that plane feeling like a ghost in my own past. The funeral was held at First Presbyterian on Meeting Street, old stone white columns, stained glass, glowing like judgment. It felt like every Charleston socialite had turned out. Wide-brimmed hats, navy suits, pearls, discreet sobs behind pressed linen handkerchiefs. Grief here was elegant, curated, silent. I stood near the back, away from the Parker family pew, Close enough to be seen, but far enough to be ignored. Charlotte gave a eulogy polished enough to be a press release. She called them the heart and soul of our city, talked about legacy vision and community. She mentioned her mother's philanthropy and her father's foresight. She did not mention me. Not once, not even a survived by 2 daughters. I suppose that was fitting. After the final hymn, people filed past the caskets like pilgrims. They paused to murmur condolences to Charlotte and Graham, their hands grasped like royalty-receiving mourners. I kept my head down, focused on the floor tiles. I didn't expect anyone to speak to me, but someone did. Lydia. She appeared like a memory made flesh, her silver hair pulled back, her eyes, watery, but sharp as ever. "My baby," she whispered, pulling me into a hug before I could react. "You came." Her voice cracked something in me. For a second, I could smell lemon oil and cinnamon, the scent of the Parker kitchen, when Lydia baked holiday pies, the scent of safety. We stepped outside together. "I've missed you," she said softly, leading me toward the courtyard. "I've missed you too." She glanced toward the polished gravestones. "They never stopped missing you." I scoffed before I could stop myself. "Could have fooled me, or—" She gave me a look, one of those looks only people who changed your diapers and saw your first heartbreak can give. "Your daddy. He changed Evelyn. Not at first, but near the end. He was going through photo albums, watching old videos of you building that soda bottle rocket in 3rd grade. I caught him crying once. My breath hitched. Then why didn't he call? I asked. He did. He tried. I blinked. What? She nodded. He wrote letters, said he was sorry, said he'd been wrong, said he hoped you'd come back. I never got them. He gave them to Charlotte to send, said she had your address. A chill ran through me so fast I forgot to breathe. I hadn't moved in 3 years. My LinkedIn was public. I worked for a company that had my face on its About page. There was no reason not to find me, unless someone didn't want me found. Lydia squeezed my hand. I shouldn't be telling you this, but you deserve to know. What else? She hesitated. He was seeing Mr. Whitaker a lot. Said he was making things right. Said, Evelyn is more like James than we ever gave her credit for. James, my grandfather, the founder. The man whose portrait still hangs in Parker & Co.'s headquarters like a shrine. We stood in silence as a breeze moved through the courtyard trees. I looked toward the family plot, toward the 2 matching caskets buried side by side beneath identical marble headstones. I wish I could have heard him say it, I whispered. You did, Lydia said. You just haven't opened it yet. The envelope burned in my purse like a live wire. I turned to her. Do you know what's in the will? She shook her head. Only that Mr. Whitaker looked nervous, as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs when I asked. For the first time since I landed in Charleston, I didn't feel dread. I felt curiosity. Real sharp-edged curiosity. There was something my father wanted me to see. Something Charlotte didn't want me to know. And in less than 24 hours I would find out what it was. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the guest room of the boutique inn near King Street, staring at the ceiling fan as it creaked gently overhead. Outside, the live oaks whispered in the breeze, Spanish moss trailing like ghosts. Inside, I replayed Lydia's words on a loop. He gave them to Charlotte to send. My mouth was dry when I finally reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope, thick parchment sealed in blue wax. Parker & Co.'s crest glared back at me, a symbol I'd once dreamed of being part of. I broke the seal. Inside was a letter in my father's tight, angular script. Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry. Not just for dying, but for everything I didn't say when I had the chance. I failed you! You were never less capable than Charlotte. You were just quieter, more deliberate. And I mistook that for weakness when it was strength. I watched your rise from afar. Every press release, every product launch. I saw a Parker building things that last, and I realized it was you, not Charlotte, who carries your grandfather's vision. You deserved a seat at the table, and I robbed you of it. I tried to reach out. Letters, calls, even drove by your office in Austin. Couldn't bring myself to walk inside. Maybe I was ashamed. I've amended my will. There will be resistance. There always is when a narrative cracks. But Mr. Whitaker knows everything. I hope in some future I won't see you'll forgive me. Love always, Dad? I read it twice, then a 3rd time, and still it didn't feel real. My father, the same man who once told me I was too analytical for real estate, had seen me, believed in me, even tried to reconcile. And Charlotte had made sure that never happened. I remembered her exact words at the funeral. We were all a close-knit family. My parents supported both their daughters in finding their unique paths. She was rewriting history in real time. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. All I could do was sit in the too-quiet room and shake. The letter felt like a bomb disguised as an apology, truth exploding inside me after years of gaslit silence. The next morning, I arrived at Mr. Whitaker's office 15 minutes early. The building was brick historic orderly. Inside it smelled like lemon oil and ink. A receptionist guided me down a long hallway lined with antique legal books. Thomas Whitaker stood when I entered. Late 60s silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked me in the eyes like he knew the weight I was carrying. "Ms. Parker, thank you for coming early. I thought we should talk privately before the others arrive." I sat heart-pounding. He slid a folder across the table. "This is your grandfather's original trust document for Parker & Co. You should understand what it says." I scanned the yellowing pages, my fingers trembling. Succession shall not be determined by age or title, but by character. Integrity, financial judgment, innovation. The heir must exemplify the values of the founder. Whitaker spoke gently. "Your father followed those guidelines when he amended the will." I looked up when, 2 weeks before the accident, he brought in outside evaluators, reviewed Charlotte's performance, compared it to your career achievements. A lump formed in my throat. "Ms. Parker," he continued, "your father didn't just change the will. He restructured the company's future. If you accept, you will become CEO of Parker & Cubbers immediately." I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. "There's one more thing," he said, reaching into his briefcase. He pulled out a flash drive. "Your father recorded a video. For the board. For Charlotte. For you." I gripped the arms of the chair like it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. He lowered his voice. "It's going to get messy, but he made this choice with a clear mind and a full heart." Suddenly, I understood the tight smiles, the cold greetings, the way Charlotte hadn't even looked at me during the service. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know how big it was. At precisely 11 a.m., I was ushered into the main conference room. High ceilings, dark wood, a long table that looked like it had witnessed 100 family dramas, and 1,000 passive-aggressive glances. The room was already half full, relatives, board members, and a few unfamiliar legal aides. Charlotte sat at the head, Graham beside her, their bodies angled like royalty on a throne. When I entered, a visible ripple moved through the room. Charlotte's face tightened into a smile. "Evelyn, you stayed." "I was asked," I said, taking the seat directly across from her. Her eyes narrowed a flicker of something sharp beneath the surface. She'd prepared for a quiet erasure, not my presence. Mr. Whitaker entered, flanked by 2 associates, carrying thick folders. He greeted everyone, adjusted his glasses, and began. "We are gathered for the reading of the final will and testament of Robert James Parker and Margaret Collins Parker. Before we proceed, I must note that this document was amended 14 days prior to the decedent's passing. The changes were witnessed, notarized, and executed in full legal accordance." Charlotte's hand visibly twitched. I watched her glance at Graham, who leaned in and whispered something I couldn't hear. Mr. Whitaker began with the usual ceremonial dispersals, family heirlooms, charitable donations, minor bequests. Charlotte received the family estate. That was expected. I got nothing in those early mentions, which also felt expected. And then, regarding Parker & Cumber Development and all associated business entities, Mr. Whitaker said, flipping a page with careful deliberation, "Robert Parker, in his capacity as trustee of the James Parker Trust, undertook a detailed evaluation of potential successors per the original founding stipulations." He paused, allowing the words to settle. "This included leadership assessment, ethical governance, innovation capacity, and financial accountability. Independent evaluators were consulted. Based on this review, Charlotte sat straighter, one manicured hand, already reaching for her water glass like she was about to toast herself. "Control of Parker & Co. shall pass to Evelyn Marie Parker." The room fell silent. It was the kind of silence you could fall into and never crawl out of. Charlotte's glass slipped from her fingers and hit the table with a sharp clink. "No," she said, her voice low. "That can't be right." Mr. Whitaker didn't flinch. It's correct. Your father's evaluation favored Evelyn, citing her leadership at Next Ledger and her financial innovations. His notes are included in the addendum. This is a joke, Charlotte spat, rising halfway from her chair. She hasn't spoken to them in years. She abandoned us. She doesn't care about the company. Whitaker's eyes remained calm. He anticipated this response. That's why he recorded a video. He pressed play. There on the screen appeared my father, seated in his study, framed by the books I used to alphabetize when I was bored as a child. He looked older, tired, but clear-eyed. If you're watching this, he began, it means Charlotte is contesting my decision. Charlotte gasped, but the room stayed frozen. I love both my daughters, he continued. But love is not the same as entitlement. Charlotte, you were raised for this role. But in recent years, I've seen decisions that prioritize appearances over ethics, comfort over challenge, and that scares me. He looked into the camera. Evelyn, I failed you. But I see you now. I see the integrity, the discipline, the vision. You are your grandfather's heir. The screen went black. Charlotte's hands curled into fists on the table. Her face was bright red. This is character assassination, she snapped. I am contesting this, on grounds of diminished capacity. You're welcome to try, Whitaker replied evenly. But your father was examined by 2 physicians the week he amended the will. Their letters are in the appendix. Graham leaned back, eyes darting. I felt my chest tighten, not with panic, but power. Not the kind that seeks revenge, but the kind that finally sees the truth get air. The room turned toward me. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The next day, I walked into Parker and Curbert headquarters for the first time in almost a decade. It was strange how familiar it still felt. The marble floors I used to tiptoe across after school. The framed press clippings in the hallway. My grandfather's portrait watching over the lobby like a sentinel. Can I help you? The receptionist asked, glancing up from her screen. Yes, I said calmly. Evelyn Parker. I believe my name should be in the system now. She blinked, then quickly checked her monitor. Her eyes widened slightly. Yes, of course. Sorry, I didn't realize. Miss Davidson is in the conference room with the executive team. I'll join them. A hesitation. She gave instructions not to be. She'll want to see me, I said, and walked down the corridor like I'd always belonged there. Inside the boardroom, Charlotte sat at the head of the table, flanked by 6 men in suits, all with open laptops and serious brows. She looked up, her expression curdling into something between panic and fury. We're in a meeting, she said through gritted teeth. Great, I replied, sliding into the seat across from her. Then I'm right on time. Walter Grant, the CFO, and one of the few remaining board members who had known my grandfather personally, leaned forward. Miss Parker, should we be expecting changes to the leadership structure? There are no changes, Charlotte snapped. We're in legal limbo. I opened my tablet and connected it to the screen. Actually, per the legal reading of the will, I'm the acting CEO, unless a court determines otherwise. And considering the audit trail Mr. Whitaker's team uncovered, I think we should talk about the waterfront development deals. A loaded silence. Charlotte's face drained of color. You don't understand the complexities of those partnerships. I understand that Harborfront Capital, where your fiancé is CFO, was negotiating to acquire 3 high-value properties at 70% of their appraised value. Gasps, muted whispers. Evelyn Graham cut in. These discussions were preliminary. I've seen the signed term sheets, I said, swiping through slides. I've also seen expense reports submitted under Charlotte's name that list private jet travel luxury accommodations and consulting payments to shell corporations registered in Delaware. Walter's voice dropped. We've been reviewing those as well. The audit team confirms these red flags. I don't believe this, Charlotte muttered, rising from her chair. You don't know how this business works. You don't know what I've sacrificed. I met her eyes steady. You're right. I don't know what it feels like to be handed power I didn't earn. I only know what it's like to build something from nothing. Charlotte was trembling now. This isn't over. I never said it was, I said. But from now on, we're doing things differently. She stormed out, heels cracking across the tile like punctuation. The board turned to me. I breathed in slowly. I don't want to burn this place down, I said. I want to rebuild it on the values my grandfather believed in. On transparency, innovation, and accountability. This company has the bones. We just need to clean out the rot. Walter nodded slowly. You have our attention. After the meeting, I returned to my father's old office. His things were still untouched. Framed blueprints, a desk with drawers full of unopened letters and fountain pens. On top of the desk was a leather-bound journal. A yellow post-it note on the front read, "For Evelyn if she ever comes back." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were entries, dozens. Some short, some pages long. Some just dates and single words, regret, watching. Too late. But some were about me. June 3rd. Watched Evelyn's interview on CNBC. I always told myself she was too rigid for real estate. But watching her today, she sounded more like James than I ever did. July 14th. Charlotte's expense reports don't line up. I think I've made a mistake. No, I know I have. August 28th. Spoke to Whitaker about changing the will. It's not about punishing Charlotte. It's about honoring the truth. I closed the journal and laid my hand on the desk. He saw me, too late for words but not too late for action. And now it was my move. It was 2 weeks after the audit revelations, when Charlotte showed up unannounced. I was in my new office, formerly my father's, reviewing a proposal for a mixed-use development on James Island, when my assistant buzzed in. "Miss Davidson is here to see you. Should I?" I didn't hesitate. "Send her in." Charlotte walked in slower than usual. No heels today, no pearls. Just jeans, a blazer, and a tension in her shoulders that seemed to weigh 10 pounds. She didn't sit right away. Just hovered by the door, like she wasn't sure she was allowed in. "I don't want this to be a scene," she said. "Then don't make it one." She exhaled and finally took the seat across from me. She looked different, still sharp, still composed, but less performed. "I read the journal," she said. "Lydia let me see it." I nodded. I figured she might. "He really did change, didn't he?" Her voice cracked. "Yes," I said quietly. "He tried to make it right." She looked down at her hands. Her nails, once perfectly manicured, were chipped. "I never sent the letters," she admitted. "I told him you'd moved. That your number changed." I waited. "I was scared," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "All my life I was told this was mine. The company, the legacy. And when he started talking about you again, I felt it slipping away. So you sabotaged our chance to reconcile." She winced. "Yes, I did." The silence between us swelled old and heavy. "You lied to our parents," I said. "You isolated me." "I know," she said. I hated myself for it even then. I studied her face. For once she wasn't acting. No stage, no speech. Just a woman unraveling the story she'd told herself for too long. "I'm not proud of anything I did after he changed the will," she continued. "But even before that, I should have stood up for you. I let Mom and Dad treat you like the understudy in your own life. And I benefited from it." I leaned back. Let the weight of her words settle. "This company could have destroyed us," I said. "It still might." She nodded. "I'm not here to fight for control. I know that's over. But I want to help. I want to earn back some part of this on your terms." My instinct was to say no, to protect what I'd rebuilt with barbed wire and distance. But I thought of the journal. The entries where Dad agonized over the wedge between us. The way he wanted his daughters to work side by side, if not as friends, then as stewards of something bigger. "I'm keeping you on," I said, "not as EVP. That trust is broken. But you can assist the community development team. You'll be reporting to them." She blinked. "Seriously? This isn't about forgiveness. It's about proving you can be part of something without controlling it." Charlotte nodded slowly. "I'll take it. And Graham?" "We separated last week," she said. And for the first time, I saw real grief on her face. Not just for a relationship, but for a version of herself that was collapsing. "I thought he'd help me build something lasting," she added. "But all he wanted was leverage. I could have said I told you so. I didn't." As she stood to leave, she looked back at me. "Thank you, Evelyn. You didn't have to." "No," I interrupted. "I didn't." She left. And I sat there heart-pounding, wondering what the hell I had just done. Offering her a second chance wasn't weakness. It was harder than retaliation. But maybe, just maybe, it was the start of a different kind of legacy. One not defined by control, but by course correction. 6 months later, the office looked different. Lighter somehow. Less stiff. We'd swapped the oil paintings for local art. Converted the old boardroom into a hybrid planning space where developers and data scientists worked side by side. We hired interns from nearby tech colleges, brought in community voices, and rewrote the company's mission statement from scratch. Parker & Co. wasn't just a real estate firm anymore. It was evolving into something with vision, something with purpose. We launched the James Parker Foundation in April, on what would have been my grandfather's 100th birthday. Its mission to support sustainable, affordable housing developments across the South, starting with the very neighborhoods our previous projects had priced out. I stood at the podium at the launch gala, looking out at the room. Old board members in tuxedos, new partners in streetwear, Lydia beaming in the front row, Rachel and Liz flown in from Austin, holding hands and giving me thumbs up from behind the stage lights. Charlotte off to the side, standing quietly, with the team she now supported, not led. And me, not a shadow anymore, not the other daughter, not a guest at someone else's coronation. Just me. I used to believe legacy was something passed down like a box of heirlooms, I told the audience. But sometimes legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you rebuild after the truth breaks everything open. It's what you choose to carry forward, and what you choose to leave behind. There was a stillness after that. A quiet so complete, I could hear the click of glasses being set gently on white tablecloths. And then applause. Later that night, I found myself alone in my father's old office. The room was no longer haunted. His journal was back on the shelf, worn at the edges. The framed photo of me and Charlotte on a childhood trip to Edisto Beach sat beside it. I traced the image with my finger. We were smiling. We were barefoot in the sand. Before the weight of expectations turned us into competitors. Behind me, Charlotte spoke. "You could have destroyed me," she said softly. "And instead, you gave me a job." "I didn't do it for you," I said not unkindly. "I did it for the company, for the people it affects, and maybe for Dad." She nodded, looking older than she had a year ago, but steadier too. "Do you think he'd be proud?" she asked. I shrugged. "I think he'd be relieved that we didn't let his worst decisions define our own." She left me with that. No grand embrace, just the space to feel the meaning in silence. I turned back to the city skyline Charleston lit up like a promise. For the first time, I felt something that wasn't anger or sadness or duty. I felt peace. Not the quiet kind, but the earned kind. The kind that comes after a storm, when you look around and realize everything's still standing, even if nothing looks the same. Not every family legacy is worth inheriting, but some like mine are worth reshaping. I thought I came back to Charleston to read a will and close a chapter. Instead, I opened one. I faced my sister, my past, and the truth about my father. And in the end, I didn't just inherit a company, I redefined it. Have you ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about your family? Or found yourself stepping into a role you were told you'd never fill? Tell me your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how life surprised you too. If this resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone navigating their own unexpected path. And remember, sometimes the life you're meant to live isn't the one you're handed. It's the one you have the courage to claim.